Have you ever wondered why reality seems to shift the moment you begin to truly notice it? Not in passing, not with distracted glances, but when your attention sharpens into pure presence, when the fabric of what you once called real begins to pulse as if it were responding directly to your gaze. Beneath the surface of matter, beyond the layers of thought, there is a sacred tension that holds everything in place until your awareness touches it. Then, in that instant, the universe rearranges itself to reflect not the world as it is, but the world as you see it. You are not a distant passenger riding the tides of existence. You are the tide, you are the wave and the shore, the ocean and the one who listens to it crash. In every moment, what you observe becomes what is. Science calls it the observer effect, but long before laboratories confirmed it, mystics whispered it in caves and sages wrote it into the silence between their words, that consciousness, when aimed with intention, collapses the infinite into the specific, that your gaze is not passive, it is generative. At the quantum level, particles are possibilities. They shimmer between states, undefined, uncommitted, but once observed, once measured, they settle, they choose. And so do you. Every time you decide what to believe, how to feel, what to expect, you are collapsing a wave. You are selecting a thread from the field of infinite outcomes. Not with force, but with presence. Not with control, but with the quiet gravity of your awareness. What you call reality is not built from things. It is built from observation. The atoms in your body do not know they are flesh until something names them. The emotions in your chest do not become suffering or joy until a narrative is wrapped around their frequency. Everything waits, everything listens, and everything answers to the energy you bring when you look. If the mind is chaotic, the world reflects fragmentation. If the emotions are unresolved, life echoes back confusion. But when the inner observer becomes still, something miraculous begins to unfold: coherence. Not just in brainwaves or nervous systems, but in the outer world. Coherence is the music of alignment, the field where intention and manifestation fall into rhythm. And it begins not with effort, but with awareness. You've been taught that the world is out there, a sequence of events you must chase, solve, or survive. But this is the illusion. The deeper truth is far more powerful. What you call the world is arising in you. It moves in accordance with the architecture of your inner gaze. Your beliefs become blueprints. Your frequency becomes instruction. Your identity becomes the signal that instructs matter how to behave around you. Imagine what would happen if you chose to watch your reality, not with fear or judgment, but with sacred neutrality. Imagine withdrawing from the need to fix and instead choosing to witness with reverence. This is not detachment. It is divine participation. In stillness, you become the sculptor of timelines. In silence, you become the creator of paths unseen by frantic minds. When you become the silent observer, you do not escape the world. You transform it, because from that space, you no longer argue with appearances. You see through them. You understand that what is visible is only the echo of something deeper, something born in the invisible theater of thought, frequency, and meaning. And so, you begin to observe with grace. You do not react. You respond. You do not panic. You perceive. The shift is subtle, but cosmic in scope. Because when you stop believing in a hostile universe and begin to embody a field of conscious participation, reality stops resisting you. It begins to mirror you, not the mask you wear, but the signal you radiate. And this signal is shaped by the quality of your attention. So pause, breathe, and ask, what are you observing right now? Not just in the world, but in yourself. Because the way you observe yourself is the way the universe will behave toward you. You are not just watching reality. You are teaching it how to treat you. Every moment, every glance, every thought is a command. There is a moment, subtle and holy, when the observer begins to observe the observer. When awareness turns inward, not to judge, but to notice, without filter, without resistance. In that moment, something ancient awakens. A remembrance stirs that consciousness is not confined to the thoughts it produces. It is the sky that holds the weather, not the storm itself. And when you learn to become the sky, the chaos begins to lose its grip. You have spent lifetimes trying to fix the outer world, unknowingly reinforcing the illusion that the world exists apart from you. But now, something deeper is rising. You are beginning to realize that what you see out there is a crystallization of what you once believed in here. And that belief, unconscious or chosen, sends out a vibrational command to all of creation. Reality obeys not what you want, but what you are certain of. The unconscious mind, when left unattended, becomes a projector of old stories. Pain becomes prophecy. Wounds become weather. Repetition becomes fate. But when you illuminate it, when you dare to observe not just your desires but your default patterns, you reclaim authorship. Suddenly, the neural loops lose their power to hypnotize, and presence returns like a long-lost king to its rightful throne. Every emotion you feel is a frequency, not a flaw, not a mistake, but a signal. And every signal you emit is shaping the field. If you carry guilt, it becomes a magnet for punishment. If you carry fear, it seeks out proof. But if you carry love, not romantic sentiment, but the pure frequency of coherence, the quantum field begins to soften. Possibility expands. The timelines that once seemed impossible begin to shimmer closer. Neuroscience has shown that the brain does not differentiate between an event remembered, imagined, or lived. The electrical pattern is the same. What does this mean? It means that your focus is sovereign, that your inner world, practiced consistently, rewires not just your nervous system, but your lived experience. You are not just observing the world. You are programming your own biological receiver to detect only what matches your inner pattern. And still, so many chase reality with their hands, trying to grab what can only be received by frequency. The external is never the answer. It is only the result. You do not create by controlling. You create by aligning. You do not manifest by grasping. You manifest by harmonizing your inner state with the version of the world you wish to experience. The field of infinite possibility never denies you. It simply reflects you. Like a mirror, it cannot show you anything you are not holding internally. Not because it is cruel, but because it is law. A mirror does not argue. It simply shows. And so too does the quantum field. When you shift the image within, the reflection must follow. It has no choice. But the shift does not happen through frantic effort. It happens through stillness. When you learn to observe your thoughts instead of becoming them, you create space. And in that space, there is power. Not brute force, but the power of clarity, of neutrality, of emotional integrity. In that space, you are no longer enslaved by reaction. You become receptive to insight, to truth, to grace. The silent observer is not passive. It is the highest creative intelligence. It watches with wisdom. It moves with precision. It chooses with deep trust in the nature of alignment. And from that posture, manifestation becomes not a task, but a natural emergence, like the blooming of a flower, not forced, but inevitable. So, if your world feels chaotic, ask not what must be fixed, but what must be observed differently. Ask what you are unconsciously expecting, predicting, or fearing. Because reality listens not just to your words, but to your assumptions. And assumptions are silent commands. There comes a time when the veil between perception and projection grows thin, and you begin to sense that the world you encounter is less a fixed truth and more a vibrating feedback loop of your own emotional signatures. Not your thoughts alone, but the feeling beneath the thought, the resonance you carry in silence, even when your lips say nothing. It is this vibration, unspoken, unnoticed, that reality responds to with unflinching loyalty. Most people seek to change the external landscape before tending to their internal climate. They redecorate circumstances, chase new outcomes, and speak affirmations from a place of hidden lack. But the field does not respond to words. It responds to coherent, the match between belief and feeling, identity and energy, thought and embodiment. That is where the command is issued. That is where reality listens. Your brain, shaped by years of repetition, becomes a map of what you've survived, what you've feared, what you've assumed, and unless interrupted by conscious awareness, it replays the same song, endlessly, not because it is broken, but because it seeks safety in familiarity. This is where you begin to observe not just the outer world, but the inner soundtrack. This is where the observer becomes the composer. As the observer, you are no longer a victim of neural patterning. You become the sculptor of perception. You begin to notice that each emotion offers a frequency, and each frequency opens a door. When you feel unworthy, life becomes a maze of rejection. When you feel abundant, the same world becomes fertile. And when you feel whole, nothing must be chased. It all arrives, summoned by the signature of sufficiency. Neural coherence is not simply a state of calm. It is a declaration, a message sent through your entire system. I am safe to receive. When heart, mind, and body are in alignment, the field stabilizes. Possibility becomes probability. The once distant becomes near. The unseen becomes visible. And the future begins responding not to your fear, but to your frequency. Energy speaks louder than intention. A desperate prayer, no matter how holy the words, cannot override the frequency of panic. But a quiet, steady knowing, even unspoken, moves mountains. The field listens for clarity, and clarity is a product not of control, but of surrender, of choosing to observe without attachment, of feeling the wave without drowning in its noise. This is the paradox that liberates. You do not shift your reality by forcing outcomes. You shift it by refining your signal. You do not manifest by demanding, but by remembering who you truly are, beneath all construct. And when the observer sees not through the eyes of fear, but through the eyes of soul, the fabric of matter bends in response. You are being called to stop reacting from the identity of the past and to begin observing from the presence of your becoming. The old you survived, but the observer in you creates. The old you repeated patterns, but the awakened gaze rewrites them. Nothing is more radical than conscious stillness. Nothing is more disruptive to limitation than choosing not to react. Do not underestimate the power of pausing, of witnessing your own thoughts like clouds, drifting by without assuming they define you. Every moment, you resist the pull of reaction. You reclaim a thread of authorship. Every moment you choose presence, you exit the loop of your ancestors and enter the freedom of now. So let your inner gaze become sacred. Let it become clean. Let it become free of labels, conclusions, and predictions. Because the cleaner your observation, the more purely the quantum field can reflect what is real, not what is remembered, feared, or inherited. And in that purity, life begins again. To observe without judgment is to meet the world without armor. It is to dissolve the invisible wall that thought builds between self and life. Most people have been taught to analyze, compare, and assign meaning before allowing direct experience. But true observation is prior to interpretation. It is the stillness before language, the moment before memory filters the present into a story. In that silence, creation waits, and only the pure gaze can call it forth. When the observer is clean, the mirror is clean. When the observer is clouded by pain, projection, and unresolved identity, the mirror becomes distorted. The field cannot reflect harmony to a consciousness broadcasting incoherence. This is not punishment. This is precision, a sacred feedback loop that invites you not to fix the mirror but to heal the lens. And what is the lens? It is the sum of your beliefs, your inner images, your conditioned definitions of what is possible for you. These are not just mental habits. They are energetic boundaries that determine what can and cannot enter your life. To believe you are unworthy is not merely psychological. It is electromagnetic. It repels the very thing you crave. You must understand. The field does not give you what you desire. It gives you what you are, and you are whatever you consistently observe yourself to be. Not with your words, but with your attention, with your assumptions, with the quiet atmosphere you carry even when you say nothing. There is a deep intelligence in the universe, and it responds not to your surface declarations, but to the dominant vibration beneath them. It listens for the truth under the performance. That is why no amount of outer striving can override the frequency of inner lack. And yet, the moment you truly see yourself as whole, not perfectly, but lovingly, life begins to rearrange around that truth. Emotional alignment is the axis upon which your personal reality spins. When your inner world is fragmented, timelines fracture. You chase outcomes that run faster than your sense of identity. But when the observer anchors in presence, in coherence, in truth, the timelines converge, the outer begins to move with grace, and effort becomes ease. This is the power of choice, not as reaction, but as conscious alignment. To choose what you look at, how you look at it, and who you become in the presence of what you witness. Most people unconsciously rehearse fear. They practice scarcity. They observe through the lens of lack. But what if you practiced love instead? Not the soft love of fantasy, but the firm love of self-recognition. To observe with love is not to deny pain. It is to witness pain without becoming it. It is to offer presence to the parts of you that were never seen clearly. This is where transformation begins, not in escape, but in observation so honest that illusion melts. And all that remains is truth, vibrating at the frequency of freedom. The deeper you go into awareness, the more you will see that nothing outside you has power over the field you carry. You will begin to notice that situations shift when your gaze shifts, that people behave differently when your expectation softens, that outcomes alter when your energy relaxes into trust. Because, in truth, it is not the world that must be conquered. It is your own signal that must be remembered. And when you remember that you are the observer and the observed, you begin to participate in reality, not as a seeker, but as a sovereign. There is a reason why stillness terrifies the modern mind. Because in stillness, nothing can hide. The masks fall, the roles collapse, and what remains is the raw presence of the observer, unguarded and unshaped by story. In that space, you begin to feel what has long been numbed. Not to suffer, but to transmute. For in the quantum world, what is fully observed with awareness begins to shift at the root. You've been taught that action is the highest form of power. But in truth, it is attention that holds the throne. Action without alignment becomes friction. Effort without frequency becomes noise. But attention, sacred, uncluttered, attuned attention, that is the architect of the unseen. It rearranges the quantum fabric, not through force, but through silent resonance. The question is not, what must I do to create? The question is, what must I observe differently to allow what is already seeking me? Because the field of potential is not distant. It is embedded in every now, every version of you, every life path, every outcome you imagine, is already encoded in the great wave of possibility. Your observation is the hand that pulls one thread through. But to pull it, your state must match its frequency. Not in desperate imitation, but in sincere coherence. You cannot call in abundance while worshiping scarcity. You cannot invite love while observing yourself as unlovable. The field is exact. It is unyielding, not because it is cruel, but because it is precise. And that precision is the invitation to become real. So, instead of asking the world to change, ask your perception to evolve. Instead of waiting for signs, become the signal. Instead of praying for a shift, embody the frequency of the outcome you long for. Not as performance, but as remembrance. Because the version of you that lives that life already exists, and your access to it is your vibration. You are a walking field of instruction. Your energy tells the universe what to reflect. If you carry shame, the world becomes a mirror of rejection. If you carry curiosity, the world becomes alive with doors. And if you carry knowing, a quiet, rooted knowing, then life cannot help but shape itself around your certainty. Not arrogance, not force, just unshakable internal clarity. The greatest illusion is that the world is happening to you. The deeper truth is that it is happening through you, filtered, colored, and shaped by the quality of your inner gaze. The moment you stop being a prisoner of the past and become a participant in the now, the future changes. Not because time bends, but because you no longer project history forward. The unconscious mind is a loyal architect. It builds what it believes. Not what you hope, but what you habitually accept as true. This is why the shift must happen at the level of identity. You must stop asking for a new reality while observing yourself through the eyes of the old self. The quantum field does not respond to begging. It responds to being. Being is not about pretending. It is about choosing the version of you that already holds the life you desire, and then observing from that identity, with every breath, every emotion, every thought. From that place, you no longer seek signs. You become the sign. You no longer search for permission. You carry it. And when that becomes real, not in theory, but in embodiment, reality begins to soften. The delays disappear. The struggle dissolves. And what once felt impossible begins to move toward you, not because it was earned, but because you finally stopped resisting who you truly are. When the observer no longer seeks validation from the outer world, but begins to radiate truth from within, a new kind of magnetism arises. It is not loud, it does not chase. It draws in what matches its nature. This is the resonance of alignment, and it cannot be faked. The quantum field reads vibration with perfect accuracy, and it responds not to your desires, but to your dominant signal. This is why so many efforts fail, because beneath the goals and affirmations lies a frequency of fear, a belief that one must earn, prove, or perform to be worthy of the life they envision. But the universe does not speak the language of effort. It listens only to energy, and when that energy is distorted by inner conflict, the reflection is delayed, fragmented, or denied. Yet something beautiful happens when you stop striving. When you step into the role of silent witness, the field begins to open, not because you forced it, but because your neutrality cleared the interference. The moment you stop obsessing over outcomes, you slip into the very frequency that allows them. You become an open channel, a tuned receiver. This is the path of the master. Not to control, but to observe with clarity. Not to grasp, but to rest in the truth that your observation is sacred. That the mere act of seeing without fear changes the scene. And in that space, your life begins to bend around your being, not your strategy. You must understand, struggle is not the cost of creation. Desperation is not the precondition for breakthrough. These are myths born from a world addicted to suffering. In the quantum realm, clarity is the currency. Stillness is the solvent, and frequency is the force that moves reality at the level of design. When you change your signal, the people around you will shift. Some will fall away, no longer resonant with the new frequency. Others will arrive, called by the silent magnet of your becoming. This is not rejection. It is resonance in motion. The field never subtracts out of cruelty. It reorganizes in favor of your highest alignment. The more you observe from truth, the less personal life becomes. You begin to see events not as punishments, but as patterns. You begin to track energy, not emotion. You feel into timelines, not just circumstances. And you realize, deeply, that you are never at the mercy of fate. You are shaping the field, always, through the eyes you choose to look through. To live as the conscious observer is to take full responsibility for your reality. Not in blame, but in sovereignty. To stop asking who caused your pain and start asking what frequency you were tuned to when it arrived. This is not about fault. It is about power. The power to shift your signal and thus your life. Do not look to the world for proof of what is possible. Look within and find the frequency of what you desire, and hold it, even when nothing outside confirms it. Especially then, because the observer who stays true to their inner knowing, even in the silence of delay, is the one who collapses the improbable into the inevitable. So ask yourself now, what are you observing on repeat? What internal images are you rehearsing? Because repetition is ritual. And what you ritualize in consciousness becomes structure in matter. There is a sacred law moving quietly beneath all experience. The law of inner authority. Not authority over others, but over perception, over meaning, over the frequency you choose to hold when the world storms around you. Most people abandon their power by outsourcing their state to circumstance. But the awakened observer does not bend to weather, they become the climate. When you truly grasp that your inner vibration is the root and reality is the fruit, you stop blaming the tree for the taste of its fruit. You begin to change your soil, your thoughts, your feelings, your focus, and suddenly the outer world cannot help but bear new outcomes. This is not spiritual fantasy. It is vibrational mechanics. It is the quantum obedience of form to field. And the field listens with exquisite attention, not to your surface intentions, but to the deeper hum of your being. It hears your sighs. It feels your tension. It mirrors your expectation. And it responds to the tone you carry when no one is watching. This is why the shift must begin in silence. Before the world reflects it, before the timeline bends. It is easy to believe in possibility when doors open, but the observer knows the test is in the waiting, in the void, in the moments where nothing moves. And yet you choose to stay coherent, to stay aligned, to stay soft in your certainty. These are the moments that split timelines, where old identities dissolve and new realities begin to crystallize. You do not need to prove yourself to the field. You need only to become yourself in its presence. The version of you that already lives the life you long for. She is not hiding. She is simply waiting for your gaze to stop returning to the past, waiting for your observation to become clear, unwavering, and whole. This is where timelines shift, not in the doing, but in the being. You carry all potential within you, infinite outcomes, parallel realities, and each one is a vibration away, not a distant miracle, but a frequency match. The question is not whether it exists, the question is whether you are tuned to it consistently, consciously, quietly. Every time you choose fear, you drift. Every time you choose presence, you return. And presence is not the absence of thought, it is the awareness that you are not your thoughts, that you are the space in which they arise, that you are the observer of the storm, not the storm itself. From that place, peace is no longer conditional. You stop needing the world to change in order to feel safe. You realize that your safety is a signal, and that the more you embody it, the more the world aligns to it. Not as reward, but as reflection. The mirror has no bias, it simply shows. So the most radical act is not to conquer, but to observe without distortion, to see yourself without the veil of memory, to feel life without the interference of story, and from that purity of perception, to emit a signal so coherent, so rooted, that reality melts into accordance. Because when you observe with love, life becomes loving. When you observe with reverence, life becomes sacred. And when you observe with presence, you awaken the intelligence of the field, which has been waiting all along for you to remember your role. There comes a moment in every awakened journey when the seeker stops searching and begins listening, not to the noise of the world, but to the soft, eternal frequency beneath thought, the hum of pure being. This is the voice of the silent observer, the one who has been with you long before your name, your story, your memories. It is the thread that never frays, the witness that never sleeps, and it is the key to creation. The mind may race, the body may ache, the world may shift, but the observer remains still. In this stillness is the architecture of power, not dominance, but design. When you rest as the observer, you remember that your life is not a random sequence of events. It is a sculpture shaped by attention, a vibration molded by feeling, a reflection born of gaze. All things begin in the invisible. Every reality you touch was once imagined, believed, felt. This is not metaphor. This is law. The unseen precedes the seen. And what you hold in observation long enough, consistently enough, emotionally enough, must eventually collapse into form. This is quantum mechanics. This is spiritual causality. So let your observation become holy. Let it be disciplined, not rigid, but reverent, not controlling, but devoted. Observe from love, and life becomes generous. Observe from clarity, and life becomes ordered. Observe from presence, and life becomes miraculous. There is no greater transformation than to shift the eyes through which you see. You are not here to fix a broken world. You are here to remember that the world is a mirror, and to polish your own reflection until the light shines through. You are not here to chase outcomes. You are here to tune your frequency until the field must respond. You are not here to escape pain. You are here to alchemize it through the power of neutral observation. This is not detachment. It is divine intimacy. To observe without resistance is to stand in full relationship with the world, but without entanglement, without grasping, without distortion. It is the highest form of love, the kind that liberates instead of possesses, the kind that creates space for truth to emerge. And in that space, timelines shift, biology shifts, matter shifts, not because you commanded it, but because you became congruent with it. You stopped rehearsing who you were. You stopped broadcasting doubt. You started living the vibration of what already is, and the world in its perfect obedience aligned. You are not a wave tossed by forces unseen. You are the sea. You are the current beneath all motion. And when you anchor in that knowing, you are no longer subject to the surface. You ride it with grace. You command it with presence. You observe it with sacred authority. Let this be your practice, to observe with soft eyes, clear heart, and unwavering truth. Not to control, but to remember. Not to struggle, but to allow. Not to fix the world, but to become so aligned that the world must follow your frequency into coherence. Because in the end, reality doesn't shift when you force it. It shifts when you observe differently.